The idea of combining 2D illustrations with 3D backgrounds is nothing new to games. Doom, System Shock, Grandia, Killer Instinct Gold, these were all 90s series that wanted to push ahead with 3D, but technical restrictions held back the characters. But not all games did this out of necessity. Some, even early on, combined the dimensions to create a unique style. The Paper Mario developers saw that attempts at photorealism on the PS1 were popular, and instead thought, wouldn't it be cuter if the characters were all in 2D? Similarly, PaRappa the Rapper invited kids book author Rodney Greenblatt to design the characters, but to retain the appeal of his drawings, they put them directly into the game and then animated those flat drawings as if they were 3D. Over a decade later, games writer Kazutaka Kodaka came to the same decision when creating Danganronpa with illustrator Ruiko Matsuzaki. Although Kodaka had worked on mystery games before, he wanted this to feel fresh and distinctive. This led to the creation of a 2D-3D hybrid, and while the staff briefly experimented with making it full 3D, it just didn't capture the appeal and impact of Komatsuzaki's original work. This video will be talking about the execution scenes in every Danganronpa title, so if you haven't played them and don't want to be spoiled, I'd watch the shorter, spoiler-free version of this video that will be out in a few days. But if not, then hello and welcome to the Canipa effect. This is an animator spotlight, not only on the 2.5D punishments of Danganronpa, but 2.5D animation as a whole. Danganronpa animation is different to a lot of the sort of stuff we cover on this channel. Rather than having each frame individually hand-drawn, these sequences are largely created through compositing in programs like After Effects. The team refers to this as 2.5D motion graphics, a form of animation more present in commercials and documentaries than cinematic storytelling. This, along with Komatsuzaki's striking illustrations, led to an aesthetic that Kodaka refers to as psycho-pop. Maddening, yet fun, a style that implies anything can happen. For example, one of the most popular executions from the first game was Makoto Naegi's punishment, where he gets lectured by Monokuma while moving backwards towards his impending doom. It's one of the most memorable scenes of the entire game, but on a technical level, it's actually kinda basic. The only 3D animation here is of solid objects turning or dropping, and then that being looped for 90 seconds. So the 3D artist is actually only working on 2 seconds of animation. In terms of illustration, it's also pretty basic. Monokuma is made up of different parts, animated separately on different layers, similar to those paper puppets you made in school, with each part attached with a paper fastener. Makoto is also only 2 illustrations. One from the front, one from the back, with some extra detail added to his face as he gets closer to his supposed death. The individual elements are basic, but it was the job of punishment movie designer Dai Nakajima, with help from Kodaka, to put it all together. This was a struggle at first, and it took a lot of trial and error getting to grips with 2.5D direction, but due to Nakajima's experience in directing the cutscenes for Devil Summoner Raidou, he knew how to work a camera, and for this kind of animation where the characters barely move, the camera work has to pull a lot of weight. That's really just scratching the surface though, and Danganronpa punishments can get a lot more visually complex, but I wanted to highlight After School Lesson because it proves that there's no correlation between technical accomplishments and appeal when it comes to Danganronpa. Regardless of how difficult it is to make, it all comes down to design and direction. Not everything works well in 2.5D, but quick camera movements and clever editing can sell the illusion of movement. And honestly, I don't think Danganronpa fans want it any other way. The executions in Danganronpa 1 were produced in-house, and since then they've worked with companies Jet Studio Inc. and Icria to create the cutscenes for the later games. And despite the series getting more popular and bringing in more money, they've never changed this incredibly limited style. but they have tested it out. In 2014, the team released Danganronpa Another Episode Ultra Despair Girls, a third-person shooter where you play as Makoto Naegi's sister. For this game, they feature 3 different types of cutscenes: full 3D scenes, anime produced at Studio Lark, and the 2.5 sequences we've come to love. By all means, the 2.5D cutscenes are likely the cheapest and the least technically impressive, but they're the best. When you've seen what can be accomplished with still images, do you really need to see them redesigned for anime or modeled into 3D? And with limitations come great ideas. During the scene where Yuta fucking explodes, they're able to get away with silly ideas that would look weird in full animation, like having his arms turn into Sonic-like spirals, and having the sea be flat looping images with basic splash VFX. It's silly, but from the very start, Danganronpa has built up an image of silly yet horrifying that allows them to work in these ridiculous effects. Another cartoonish yet effective technique is in exporting the hand as a separate image from the body. You see it first in Leon's execution in the first game, where his hand desperately reaches out towards the camera, even while his body gets pulled back. It's emulating the idea of changing focal lengths, but it's not restricted by what a real camera can achieve. The same technique was used in Masaru Daimon's punishment in Ultra Despair Girls, and briefly in Kaede's execution in Danganronpa V3. Through the use of the virtual camera in After Effects and some clever storyboarding, characters can be animated effectively through moving each body part independently. In fact, this was the philosophy behind Live 2D, an animation software first launched in 2008 that could turn flat illustrations into moving faces. One of the most popular uses was on the Oreimo PSP game, where along with having still images like most visual novels, it also had these live 2D images that were reacting and talking back to you. And the more that it developed, the more that it started to appear like 3D, and its eventual compatibility with FaceRig brought upon an influx of virtual YouTubers.
It's me, Mario! It's me, Piccola!
But there's only so much you can achieve from showing the same images but in different locations. It works fine for VTubers, but what about flowing hair? What about fabrics? What about breast jiggles? 2.5D can emulate a lot of things just by moving still images. But there's a limit. Or, at least there was.
Our power is yours. You need but will it. There's nothing you cannot do.
In 2013, US-based company Esoteric Software launched a Kickstarter to improve and expand their animation software Spine. This form of 2.5D animation takes a still image but lets you animate it as if it's a 3D object. Cygames adopted the software in 2016 for Shadowverse, and later they used Live 2D for the Union Burst in Princess Connect Redive, since they added deformation tools to that as well. Spine does have more control though, and it's perfect for a game like Shadowverse where the animation is on screen at all times. This form of movement, which Spine refers to as 2D skeletal animation, lets you rig up illustrations with bones and meshes and deform them into unique movements. It's easy to learn, especially if you have experience with 3D animation, but it's hard to master. During the closed beta test for Shadowverse, animation team manager Tsubasa Matsuoka decided that the leaders should be animated so players would be able to get more attached to them. This prompted them to pursue Spine, an animation software that already had Unity integration and wouldn't lag the game at all. And like Danganronpa, Shadowverse was able to maintain the appeal of each individual illustrator. So an artist can draw an image of Vanya and the animators can work with that directly, whether that's an idle pose within the frame or her bursting out of it to evolve a card. I mentioned Danganronpa, but in terms of deforming, the executions are actually pretty limited in this respect. They're definitely aware of the technology, but Danganronpa's appeal is in its limitations. And even when 2.5D advances as a medium, it's not always going to fit the desired aesthetic. For example, recently a game called As Dusk Falls was announced at the Xbox Games Showcase. From Interior Night, a team in London, this is the closest we've seen to Danganronpa's visual style, with intentionally flat images existing in a 3D space. And much like Danganronpa, it doesn't overuse deforming. Notes will flutter in the wind, hair will rustle slightly, but the focus is always on the individual illustrations. For years it felt like illustrators didn't really have a place in animation. Their designs were overly complex and needed to be simplified. I mean, just look at Yoshitaka Amano's original designs for Jubiate compared to what actually made it into the show. But 2.5D allows these original works to be front and center, not hidden away in art books. The medium isn't better or worse than 2D or 3D, but it has a place. I've already introduced several forms that it's already taken: the still images in the 3D world of Danganronpa, the facial compositing of VTubers in Live 2D, and the skeletal spine 2D animation of Shadowverse. And that's all in one decade. Who knows what can be achieved in the next one? Thanks for watching the Canipa Effect, but before we go, I'd like to thank these animated individuals for supporting the channel. In particular, I'd like to thank Austin Hardwick, Dedameat, Edwin Shale, Frogkun, Jacob Bosley, Jawburst, JR Pictures, Julio Ruiz, Matthew Grunsell, My Own Mother, Nolan Soga, and That You Are an Artist. If you'd like to help support future industry spotlights, please feel free to visit patreon.com/thecanipa effect.